Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Brief. Today, we're very fortunate to have Palmer Houchens with us today. Palmer, welcome.
Well, hey, Chris, thanks for having me on.
So Palmer is the VP of Marketing with G2, and I can't wait to dive into all you're doing and what's coming up. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. But to get us started, why don't you give us a background on kind of where Palmer started in the world and what led up to what you're doing now?
Sure thing. Well, I'm actually a Mississippi kid. Was born there, and ended up going to college there at Ole Miss. We weren't quite as good at football when I was there as we are these days, but I'll try not to be bitter about that and just enjoy the good days that we're having now. But I studied journalism and history, double majored in that at school, and kind of quickly realized, oh man, I need to figure out something to do when I get out of school. I enjoy journalism, but didn't want to kind of, go through cut through the ranks of working at the newspaper and climbing the ladder that way. So I thought, I was like, marketing. It's kind of adjacent to what I'm learning from a journalism perspective, and I'll see what I can do there. And ended up getting an internship or two throughout that, and really kind of started my career on the digital marketing side. I had actually worked in college, like helping promote concerts, working with some bands. So I kind of fell into this music and entertainment route. And I did that for the first kind of 5 years of my career. Worked at a magazine, worked at an agency, but the common thread was always kind of we were working with music and entertainment clients. Got into that job, actually took me up to New York for a few years, and but quickly realized, oh man, this is fun, and I'm in my 20s, and this is great, but I don't know if I can do this forever. And so I was actually planning to go back to graduate school, get an MBA. And as I was in the process of applying and doing all that, I had got connected with a former colleague who was at a startup company that I didn't know, but he described it to me. Sounded really attractive. They were looking for someone with a background like mine, digital marketing, had a little of experience outside of the B2B software world. And the company was Mailchimp, and it was the early days of Mailchimp. I joined fewer than 100 people. I was one of the early marketing hires there. And when I look back and say I could have gotten my MBA or gone to work at Mailchimp, I probably chose the right route and just getting that real world experience working with the team there. So I joined, spent almost 8 years there, kind of cut my teeth on every. Was a marketing generalist to start out. Did everything from brand to customer acquisition to marketing operations, whatever it really called for. I ended up leading our what we called our integrated marketing team, and that was my last role and probably most significant one there. Ended up leaving the company after about 8 years. A great ride, but just wanted to try something new, and I hopped over to another company here based in Atlanta called CallRail, that is similar to Mailchimp, that it focuses on an SMB kind of customer base, very sort of conversation intelligence, phone analytics based. Spent 2 years there as their VP of marketing, and then kind of COVID happened in the middle of that. I think everyone remembers their COVID job. That was my COVID job, and I kind of realized, oh well, I like what I'm doing here, but I don't necessarily have to limit my search to where I want to work to just the kind of the Atlanta area. There's a lot of other great kind of B2B software companies out there. And around that time, a former colleague reached out. She had joined G2 as their CMO, and was interested in kind of bringing me on board over here to build out a brand and comms function. And I'd been a two-time G2 customer. I like really loved the platform. Was kind of built into it. And as I got closer, started talking to our leadership and really kind of got the full story of where G2 came from, where they were going. I was just fully bought in. And so that was, I'll hit 5 years at G2 this summer. I've worn a number of different hats here too. I started out kind of building a brand and comms team. I've been the interim head of marketing twice now, and now I'm kind of back into sort of a brand comms content, creative sort of focus on the role that I have today. But it's been a great journey, and excited to kind of be at the epicenter of now B2B software services, AI, all of this kind of coming together. G2 sits at a really great spot, and I kind of enjoy the perch.
That's fascinating. Tell me, are there specific things in your past when you were working on music and entertainment, like lessons? Because I know I've worked in that space a little bit, and I found it to be amazing when you had somebody that was hot, and
Mhm.
incredibly difficult when you didn't.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's cyclical, right? So are there lessons that you kind of, still
Well,
lean back on?
the one lesson I learned early on that I mentioned, my first ever job last for a year was a digital music startup, and I mean, it never after a year we all got laid off. It never really started
Right.
up, and so that's a great lesson at 23 to learn versus 43. I
Right.
was like, oh, whatever, I'll just go find it, kind of find a new job. But what I really learned throughout that process, I jumped to my next role, which was, the music industry was being massively disrupted during this time with sort of Napster, and we're working for a print magazine. It was obviously, we know what's happened kind of in the print world. So I kind of learned to look at these like larger market dynamics and both like, what changes should we make to adapt and survive? And then what do we just need to let go of like, that's yesterday's news. And we've got to kind of evolve to the reality that's there. I don't know that I did that all that successfully in the years over there, but early in my career, kind of learned to at least kind of look where the wind is blowing and figure out what do we need to change now versus wait until until it's too late, essentially.
Yeah, like you, I'm a big fan of music, and just this week, actually, I was cleaning out some files, and I literally had dozens of Paste Magazine CD samplers of
Okay.
all these emerging artists, and I was like, "I can't let these go, but I kinda have to." Right?
Hey,
I mean
listen, I got a stack of those somewhere back
right?
here too, and it's funny to think. I mean, and that was one of the perks of
Oh,
that magazine. Like everyone loved
yeah.
the CD, and then we
Oh,
think about it today, and it's like, oh man, what yeah, different era to live through, but still one that I also think I learned during that process. Like it's okay to love something a lot and not want to work in that industry. I
yeah.
kind of healthy distance can be a good thing.
Yeah, I actually think, some of the things that I love most, like, I love fishing, but I
Mhm.
can't imagine working in the industry because I think it would ruin it for me, right?
Right.
And so I totally see that. I love that on your journey, you said very clearly a couple times that people you knew and trusted pulled you into your next role.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and how that's kind of been a permanent part of like your
Oh,
ecosystem and the way you work.
it's funny that like I reflect back on my career and that's probably the biggest common thread through it all. And it's not to say that like, hey, you don't need to like bring the goods and be able to go do that, but those doors that open for you through connections, whether they be personal side, like my connection to Pace was just that their ad sales rep was based in Oxford, Mississippi, where I lived, and I had gotten to know her and her
Wow.
husband, and like that was the connection, and that opened it up. And there's a line that starts there all the way through where I am today. But I've just always been someone who's encouraged folks and practices in my own sort of day to day to just like build that network. Our chief innovation officer Tim Sanders, he's a great guy and written several books, and his phrase is always, your network is your net worth, and like that's
Yeah.
certainly true. And I think it's easier earlier in your career to go out and do that because you have more free time. You don't have the kids' sports games you got to go to. Your job itself may not be as busy as it is, and so I think that's something that as I look back on, it's like, oh, I still value that and would love to get to events and meet folks. But when you're in your 20s, 30s, early on, it's just an area where I sort of invested a lot and also built it. And I think it's got to go. It can't just be surface layer deep either. I like the folks who just go out and do the mass LinkedIn invitations. Like that's not really building a connection. Like you need to
Yeah.
build, whether it's a friendship or at least just sort of a professional relationship there. I would encourage folks to do that.
Well, in some respects, G2 is that, right? I mean,
Mm,
it's obviously for software and solutions, but in some respects, what you've been able to do just it naturally and through some effort over time is to have a strong network and to have that advocacy that and I'm sure you pay it back as well. And we'll dig into that a little bit later. But so let's jump into G2. So describe what's the marketing elevator pitch on what G2 is. And by the way, I just love that you were a customer, two-time customer prior to getting there. I mean, what a better way to see into the envelope. And as a marketer, if you don't believe in it, like, that's not a marketing problem, right? That's a belief problem. So tell us a little about what's the elevator pitch and lay it out there for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's helpful to start with sort of G2's origin story, and I think our founders who had come off a couple of successful exits were trying to figure out what they wanted to do next, and they simply realized back, and this was the kind of the 2012 2013 era, like I can find more information online about a $99 a night hotel room than I can about a $100,000 piece of software. There was just this gap. And I think a lot of it was purposeful of like, you wanted the smoke and mirrors, you wanted folks to go through the sales process. But G2 was really dead set on building that customer voice as a centerpiece of what the B2B buying journey and the B2B selling journey became. And so we think of ourselves as the world's largest and most trusted B2B software marketplace. And we're building that out to include not only software, but today, services, AI, wherever that broader kind of B2B technology landscape is going. We've got close to 3.5 million like vetted, verified. We know these folks are using the software reviews across G2, and so we use that as sort of the starting point to build that foundation of customer trust. And we think that that trust is kind of the centerpiece of that kind of B2B buying and selling motion. And so we're doing everything that we can to build that out, make it as turnkey and easy as possible. And here we are, 14, 15 years after we got started, and excited to kind of see where we go from here.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I appreciate about it is in the world today, particularly, the pace of change is
Mhm.
incredibly rapid.
Mhm.
And the recency factor of the content gives you a lot of confidence when you're looking for like how to decide, and the ability to see competitive sets in a clear, organized fashion. Tell us a little bit about how you build and support those two kind of problem sets of like recency and clarity of marketplace.
Yeah. Well, the first one of recency, I mean, I think that's always been important, but in the age of AI, it's becoming even
Yep.
more important. I mean, we see all sorts of signals that indicate if you're going to ChatGPT, if you're going to Claude to get recommendations, recency is a big factor in what they're
Yep.
showing. That they're not going back and showing you 3-year-old reviews. They know that, and this is true with Google as well. I don't think
Yeah.
it's just an AI thing, but recency is a big part of that. And so we know that. We know that's what software buyers want. They want to know someone who's using the latest version, the latest use case. But we're also pushing that with our vendors as well. If you're a B2B seller, you need to make sure you're getting recent, updated reviews so that those buyers will trust you. And that's I think we're triangulating between both of those worlds, and trying to bring that to bear with both of them and create urgency on both sides. And it's not something that we're manufacturing. We really do see it kind of play out in that landscape. I think on the clarity side, I mean, gosh, like the software world, we've gone from these very simple point solutions to like super complicated platforms, and then you
Yep.
add on the AI offerings that every software product has these days. I mean, it's just like you need that clarity to navigate that buying process. But what we've also found, and we've done a lot of research on what buyers are looking for, is they don't wanna get into that sales process process until they've gotten way down the road. They're going to talk to their peers. They're going to go read review sites like G2. They're going to go to AI and try and build a short list before they engage. So I think from a vendor perspective, like you've got to be able to create that clarity at touch points outside of your own kind of ecosystem, and I'll include your website and your sales folks and marketing
Yep.
teams. And so G2 is just sort of one spoke on that wheel.
Yeah. Um, One of the things I've found is, I mean, with clients for years, we've helped them build testimonials and things like that. A lot of times corporate policy doesn't allow people to do that. How do you guys work with that dynamic or around it and facilitate the uh, quality and certainty factor without necessarily breaking corporate rules or
Yeah.
putting people in a bind?
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways. I mean, and I think this comes up a lot when you work with vendors who work in the public space. A lot of government customers, they can't, certain information they can't share, or can't, take that $5 Starbucks gift card as a reward for writing the review. And so we work with those on a case by case basis. I think normally, um, my starting point is really like no matter how big of a company you are, you've got probably 10 rabid fans who are really will do anything for you and share that. And so I encourage folks to start there, start building that customer trust. But then also we have ways. Hey, if you don't, if you're not allowed to publicly endorse this, like there's a way that when you actually show up as a review, you can be anonymous. Your company can be anonymous, but on the back end, we're vetting that you're actually a customer
Yeah.
and doing all of that diligence, kind of trust and safety work for them. So there's lots of ways around that. But then again, just as many of those cases, we see rabid reviewers who are out there writing dozens of reviews a year out of all the software that they're using. And so I think it's just a balance in creating sort of a motion that works for both ends of that spectrum.
In supporting sales teams with their sales motions, there's lots of platforms that help analyze, what those look like, and one of the areas that people are getting better about is post-sale and retention.
Mhm.
How does G2 relate from a current use and post-use
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah. Great question. I think we want to see folks adopting G2 is a holistic piece of that customer lifecycle. It's
Yeah.
certainly it's great for when you're about to make that decision, when you're vetting that solution. I think that use case speaks for itself. There's obviously ways to engage, update reviews as new features are rolled out that you maybe want folks to speak to. We have a process for that as well. But I think there's also this customer retention play that's underutilized, but we have a buyer intent sort of offering that provides signals of who's in market for what. And one of the ones that I like to point to is if you have an existing customer who's comparing you to your direct competitor and you get that signal, like that should be your number one, like red flag should be going off of like this person is thinking about not renewing or making a switch. And that's early intel that you can go and action. I mean, that could truly happen before the vendors come to you to say, "Hey, we're not," or the customers come to you to say, "We're thinking about not renewing your solution." So allows you to be proactive to build that business case, and that's just like one signal that can be a make or break one between whether you're going to get that renewal or not.
Yeah. One of the dynamics of human nature that I'm curious how you address is, in social, there's a lot of negative stuff, right?
Mhm.
The people, because you can be anonymous or semi-anonymous and like ranting about something or being critical of something. How do you normalize the kind of context of that?
Yeah, right. I mean, for us, I think it comes to life for us in sort of the review star ratings that we see. And I always tell folks like, listen, if your product is just all 5-star reviews, like folks are going to read through that. They're going to know that like that something's up there that maybe it's not there. I think folks can find a lot of value in a 3-star review that's very constructive in terms of what its feedback and what it does well and improvement. I think both as software buyers, we appreciate that, but then even as vendors, we should, because hopefully there's some constructive feedback that you can then go action. And we always give folks the opportunity to respond to reviews on G2 so that you're saying, "Oh, that's great. Like we built this integration, we did this, we did that, we actioned it, we heard it." And I mean that goes even beyond we know that's a real value to folks there. So I think some folks get too fixated on, hey, everything's got to be positive all the time. It's maybe not the same as social media where things can get negative or very antagonistic fast. I think what we run the risk of is having things be perfect all of the time. And
Right.
I think it's okay to say, hey, this product's great, but this one thing could be better. And like that's
Right.
feedback. That's why you see our reviews have sort of like pros, cons, what could be better, all of that, because we think that's part of the what the feedback that buyers need to make informed decisions, but also vendors can use as a kind of continuous loop feedback cycle there.
Um, what's your buying committee look like as a marketer? Who are
Yeah.
the people you're marketing to, and what's the range and motion there?
Yeah, it's for us, we're typically selling into marketing departments, and so for us, it's all about creating that value at sort of the VP or CMO level. They're almost certainly not the day to day user, the one who's logging into G2, but if they see that value, then the rest takes care of itself. We're typically selling into either a customer advocacy, customer marketing, demand gen type growth marketing persona. Those I know those are two very distinct ones, but they both have very applicable use cases on G2. But for us, especially because if you think about where marketing dollars go, we're not really a like software solution. You know what I mean? We're not the same as Marketo or Salesforce or something like that. But we're also not paid search or paid social, where it's like, okay, we just have a set PPC budget and we go run that thing over here. And that there's nothing wrong with those things. We inhabit
Right.
a little bit of a gray area there. So that's why we want to have folks fully bought in on the platform, bought in on what it delivers, and have that sort of executive. Yeah, we love G2. We love the badges that we get. We love how we show up in our grid reports. We love the customer validation that's there. And like I think when we can show that at the executive level, that's where we see the most success. And so that buying committee looks like some sort of combination of those roles and functions.
Yeah. One of the things we advise clients to do, particularly in the software and tech like solution space, is to have um, advisory groups,
Mm.
product advisory groups that are the hands-on folks, and then the executive sponsor, kind of brand level advisory groups, because they're different and they're thinking differently, and you need that feedback as an organization to be objective. You just can't get it a lot of other ways. How does G2 kind of tie in, and do you have a motion in your system that does that?
We both we as a go-to-market organization here have an executive advisory board of CMOs who kind of give us feedback on G2, talk about what their challenges are. And you're exactly right. Like that feedback is very different than the day-to-day, like what we a lot of times will call design partners that we go and
Yeah.
run out like new products with, of like, hey, we're thinking about this integration. Can you test it? Tell us how it works. It equally valid, but like a CMO is looking at it from a very different perch than a
Yeah.
customer marketing manager is in terms of what they want to deliver. So I think it's helpful to have both of those. But I also think that one of them is a little bit more tactical in the feedback of like, okay, great, we're going to talk to our product team about putting that in next quarter's roadmap to go build that. Whereas with the CMOs that we work with, it's much more strategic and sort of like, well, where do you see the value of something like this a year from now, down the road? Like where are your biggest gaps today? So I think as long as folks understand like I guess sort of the adjacency and also the elevation of where that feedback's coming from, then it becomes really helpful.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious. I heard you talk about how you're not a Marketo or HubSpot or a marketing
Mhm,
automation platform or a media channel, yet you are very much a social proof platform,
mhm.
right? Is that how you describe it, or what's the language? Because part of what I heard you say is you have to help people know how to not only budget for you, but to include it in their marketing kind of solution sets in some way, shape, or form, because it is a budgeted item, right? Like,
Oh,
how
absolutely,
how
100%. I think it just as I've even thought about it, how it's fit in different places in the past, it's like, okay, maybe the buyer intent solution fits into the demand gen, budget because we're building that as part of our ABM motion, or just the broader kind of orchestration and AI workflows that we're building out. By the same token, the review generation, the customer social proof, like that's a very different thing. But we found that to be so core today to most marketing missions out there, that if folks are overlooking it, we think they're making a kind of a fatal mistake in terms of the eyes of their prospects and customers. So kind of going out to build that level of urgency and value is helpful, and I think helps differentiate us between, oh, they're just a pure software solution versus a paid sort of media solution. And I say that, like, we've launched, like, we have PPC solutions. We did a big acquisition to bring on some new companies that offer that. So there's no knock on that. It's just like we
right.
still see the centerpiece. Our core differentiator is that customer voice. It's the customer reviews. It's that social proof and validation. The rest of it just becomes part of the broader ecosystem around that.
Yeah, I love though that you said buyer intent solution, because one of the things we advise clients to do, we get all the time. The first question is, our lower funnel is not performing
Mhm.
like it used to. What do we do? And the first question we ask is, what's your customer satisfaction layer, and what are you monitoring, and how are you making strides to always improve it? And the beauty of the solution you have is it's not only prospective buyers, but it's current customer intent,
Mhm.
because there's that duality in the information there that's really powerful. And I bet people that first join your will start working with you are doing it for more prospective buyers
Oh,
rather
100, I
than
mean,
you know
100%. That
yeah,
that that is the 101 level is hey, we got to get out there in front of the prospects and have that customer and social proof. I'd say as folks get more advanced, start understanding the 201, 301, the advanced level courses are, oh, wow, we could use this with our current customers, both
yeah,
to, both to, we talked about the churn prevention solution, but there's also hey, you're a giant software company that has multiple platforms and solutions. You see someone that's a current customer of this solution looking for something else, you're like, "Hey, did you know we offer that? Like, why don't we showcase that to you?" So there's just a lot of intent there, and where we see value of, like, this is, we're not aggregating third party signals, and we're actually taking our first party data and helping you use that to make the best decisions for your business. And so the fidelity there of that signal is just a lot higher than someone scrolled the web and did this one thing or did that. And there's no knock on that. There's a way to build out a full funnel with all of that, but I think we also like to showcase the uniqueness and sort of fidelity of our buyer intent signals.
yeah. I'm curious. Obviously, you care. I mean, organizations that are smarter are obviously paying a lot of attention to prospects and current customers.
Mhm.
A lot of times they forget to talk to their internal team. Is there a layer that G2 does that is reflective, or captures the, you know, internal side's view?
Yeah, and that's an interesting angle there. I think there is a way. The best customers I know, I mean, I think back. This was years ago. We had a did hosted a panel with our CEO, and a few other leaders, including the CEO of the time, at SalesLoft, Kyle Porter. And he said, he was like, I wake up every day and I read our G2 reviews, and then I go talk to the product team about things that we need to go change to, like, what about this? What about that? And I don't know that he necessarily sent a product solution every single day, but I do really believe that he read any new G2 reviews the day that they came in. So there is a way to sort of internalize. I mean, we try and do this internally as well with our, like, you can review G2 on G2, take that feedback and use it to sort of action, like, where things are going and guide that internal roadmap. Not everybody looks at it that way, but I think the best ones do.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. Um, One of the things that I see changing, and so this is an opinion, in the marketplace, there was a time where Gartner and Forrester and IDG were
Mhm.
like, especially for the big enterprise level platforms, almost essential. You know, you had to be in the quadrant, you had to, but that's such a long game. A lot of times, especially for an emerging solution, you have to create volume in the category. Like if you're going to be in a quadrant, there has to be others to be, a quadrant has to have others, right? It can't just be
Mhm.
you. So you know, how do, and again, a lot of that is very look back
Mm.
versus recency. How are you seeing it? And is there co-opetition there? Or how do you guys, you know, kind of
I
correlate?
I think that they're two uniquely different things is
Okay.
how I'd frame it. The traditional research and advisory world is very tops down.
Yeah.
It moves a little bit slower. It's very much that let's aggregate information and then provide recommendations. Whereas we see G2 as being bottoms up. You're taking real time customer voice, and we're updating that on a grid almost immediately. When we talked earlier about sort of speed and recency, clarity, I think that that's our big advantage in this world. Like um, we we create categories. I mean, we work with vendors in the space. We look to see emerging categories. There's 2,000 plus of them across G2, and so we pride ourselves in being very quick to action when we see something that's moving in that direction, and then letting the customer voice kind of build up from there. We create the space, and then the customers kind of fill in the feedback there. So two different models. I think we're at. I certainly, in very established enterprise categories, obviously I see the value in those. But I will say there's, categories that we view as not new, old, that have never had a wave or a quadrant yet are having a very rich sort of category and customer kind of feedback and reviews on G2. And so I think that that's a good balance there. And for the folks that I talk to that are active on both sides, it's not an either or decision. If your prospective buyers are really going to value the that research and what they published, then great, like you need to be there. But I also think we have enough data to back up that like you need to have that software kind of review side covered as well. And so that's a lot of times our positioning is that again, I like the angle, it's top down, we're bottoms up. You probably want to have both.
Right. We talked a little bit about how you're not a CRM, you're not a channel, but you are in some ways playing roles. What's your partner ecosystem
Yeah.
look like, and how does that maturing as the marketplaces evolves? Because I mean, it's changing pretty rapidly. I mean,
Yeah.
more so than ever, right?
Really, we have a very robust partner ecosystem and a very active partner team. And those partnerships, what I love like about it is they kind of all look a little bit different. We have different pockets or categories them for we've had long-standing partnerships with Salesforces and the HubSpots of the world, so you can pair G2 data with your CRM data.
Right.
We've had long-standing ones with the Pindos and Delighteds of the world, so that you can integrate customer feedback reviews into that MPS or sort of customer feedback loop. Later on, we added ABM integration, so you can actually push your buyer intent data. If you're using 6sense or demand base, you can go do that natively through G2. But the world is evolving, much beyond that. LinkedIn is another one we've had forever of just like being able to map that buyer intent to matched audiences on LinkedIn. But some of the newer ones that I'm excited about are like we've started integrating with a lot of AEO tools, so you can
Mhm.
actually we've created an AEO dashboard on G2. You can see how your customer reviews, how that customer that user generated content is helping you become more visible on the Chat GPTs and Claudes of the world. And so I think that's really valuable. That's an area that a year ago we didn't have, and we've invested that over the past year. And so I think we're always just looking for not like what do our customers want, need, like what are the opportunities to go partner and kind of build that out together. But again, I think one of the nice things about G2 is a lot of our A lot of the big solutions that sell or that generate reviews on G2 are also great partners of ours and folks that we can work with in a number of different ways. So even the Zoom Infos and the Snowflakes of the world come to mind as integration partners of ours, but also customers of ours.
Right. Yeah, I love that because the AEO is like the new Wild West, right?
Mhm.
And lots of people are using different tools to figure out what sources are being called and why, and how can you affect them as part of your content stream. But in so many respects, it's really, I mean, because trust signals are a higher value, and G2 is all about trust, right?
Mhm.
So it talk about a positive development in the market where there are many that are affected quite negatively,
It
right?
it is, and I think we were pretty I mean, we went through a time where I think what happened was, I mean, the core to G2 for a long time was SEO. It was like, hey,
Right.
folks are searching for a new marketing automation solution. Our category is going to show up first there. And as the chat GPTs of the world started propagating, we sort of saw that SEO shift happen in real time. But the flip side of that was the AO visibility wasn't necessarily visible to everyone
Right.
at that time. And I think looking back, it's like, oh, the shift was happening. That's what that was going. Now we've been able to quantify it. But you're exactly right. I mean, I think whether someone's searching on Google or they're using an LLM to go do it, it's still there's a trust layer that's really important. That it's only getting more important as those models get better. Of it's just like some random blog a guy wrote or something that seems self-promotional on your website isn't going to carry as much weight as a review that we know is vetted, verified, got a name and a company attached to it. Like that's just going to be a higher signal and a more higher likelihood of folks to see that being cited in an AI answer. And so we've built, we're building around that. We know that what we're cautioning and sort of warning a lot of our customers is like, well, that's the time to be at the top of that short list is now, and like you've got to work harder than ever to get there. And so we
Yeah.
see customer reviews as being a great way to be cited to get those AI citations, but then we also see a little bit of what's happening is like I'm using AI to build the short list, but then I want to go to my peers, I want to go to those Slack communities I'm in, I want to go to G2 and sort of vet that out and make sure my hypothesis that I've built with AI is actually proving to be true there. So it's just um, going back to your point about sort of recency and speed, like that buying cycle is getting shorter than
Yeah.
ever. And it's also becoming later and later before you get that direct touch point with someone. So you've got to use all the tools at your disposal to present yourself as early and as accurately as possible.
Yeah. So reflecting on what you did from a marketing perspective last year, what's are there any things that you're doing less of? And as you look to the next, 6 to 18 months, what are some of the things that are in your roadmap to test and learn?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think really, we've always done a good job from a marketing perspective of hey, let's if it's not working, like, we're gonna pull back there. It's not like we don't just have to honor, "Oh, we've always done this," or, "We've spent the legacy of vibes," or, we've moved dollars around in sort of our budget. I don't know that there's anything we would say is flat out, "Oh, that's not working," or,
Sure.
we're gonna abandon that altogether." I think what we will see is just, like, inflection points in new areas, one of which is, I think, in-person events and in-person touch points. And I say events, it's not necessarily trade shows. It could be dinners, field marketing, higher touch opportunities. Those seem to be more important than ever, both as sort of a product of folks working from home like us for so long, and but then also just needing a little bit more validation in person, wanting to have that touch point. So that's an area where we've started investing a little bit more than we have maybe traditionally in the past. And then I'd also say, like, I'm self-interested in this one, but the brand side, like the helping shape that narrative. I think that PR is an area that was that was largely seen as like a, I'm not saying G2, but just historically as like a cost
Yeah.
center in a lot of marketing
Yeah.
budgets. So we pay X amount to a PR agency and whatever, like we got some impressions. But I think now you're able to better tell that story of like earned media is actually another great way to start getting influence with AI. So that's an area both that we're investing in, and it's not just all just PR comms. It's like a lot of we have a unique data set to sit on. We can go do some very interesting content around that I think
Yeah.
we can show is something that AI really likes because it's based on our data and presented in a way that's very B2B buyer friendly.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Speaking of events, I know you just recently were at the Meltwater Summit and with Gwyneth, our common friend,
Yeah,
Gwyneth
common culture.
Paltrow.
So it's actually coming
Yeah.
up. It's next month. I haven't gone yet, so
Oh,
we'll we'll
okay. Yeah.
we'll we'll
Uh,
see.
but Gwyneth whispered to me that Holly, and this isn't out yet, but so this is the news, right? That there's going to be Hollywood's decided they're going to do a biopic on you. What's the name of the film, the plot or theme, or who's going to play you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I pitched the Royal Tenenbaums to Gwyneth, and she wasn't having it, so gonna have to go in a different direction. I like the title. I I'm still going, and I like Will Ferrell as I'm a comedy guy. I just love to just kind of be in a Will Ferrell, John C. Riley back together, and we're getting up to some fun together. It maybe has it's a dramedy. There could be some serious moments, but mostly it's like we're having fun. It's a little bit ridiculous.
PG-13
Yeah,
or
okay, yeah, we'll get I mean, I feel like now the studios would force that. I would be pushing for R, but PG-13, they would say we have to get the broadest audience possible.
right? Yeah, no, I love that. That's fantastic. Palmer, anything that you want to make sure our listeners hear before we wrap up?
Like I think two things that are recent news in our world. We recently acquired Capterra Software Advice and GetApp. So very three competitor sites to G2 that built up over the years. Great audience. We've now kind of doubled our reach, almost doubled our review volume. We're still today we're two independent. We're operating them independently, but excited about being able to integrate those businesses together and really become like the go-to for B2B software. I think we're the clear leader in the space when you aggregate that together. So really exciting time that we had announced that back in February and hard at work on all the that was the fun part. Now all the integration work that's is great, but is real work is happening. But we're excited about the opportunity there. And then more recently, last week speaking of AI, we just launched our G2 MCP. So it's a way for you to actually integrate with G2. We're in beta right now, but like go surf some of those great G2 reviews, be able to pull them in as references, build them into presentations, however you're using them. But we're excited about that opportunity to just make our data more readily available at our customers' fingertips.
Awesome. Those are fantastic developments and a great job staying on market, right? Because the integration of, I mean, how do you lower the time and effort while improving the efficiency and effectiveness of, I mean, like really smart, and having a multi-dimensional offering now with the acquisition, super smart as well. Pulling the benefits of all together, right? Really,
Oh,
really intelligent. Um, so for those that want to leave reviews on this episode, what's the best way to reach out to connect with you, Palmer?
Listen, you can find me on LinkedIn, Palmer Houchens. Also drop me an email, Palmer at G2. Very easy to find me. But and also too, if you're listening and you're like, hey, I really had a great experience with that product I was just using, go to G2 and leave a review. It feels good, and trust me, your vendor will appreciate you.
I love it. Palmer, thank you so much for being with us today. And with that, we'll conclude another episode of Beyond the Brief. All of our listeners, stay tuned. There's always more. And Palmer, we'll have to have you back in for another episode, maybe in a year or so.
All right, Chris, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.